this isn't a big issue, it just is there. But we are the bride of Christ as the church. And both of these tables are a part of our life. They really are. Because one is one that we take place at every single day of our life. Every part of our life has to do with this Last Supper. Because without this Last Supper, you wouldn't have the relationship you have with Christ. This is where something changed. Right here is where the church was birthed. You became the bride of Christ right here. Because he set precedences and principles for the church for the first time right here. Before the sermon, at the Sermon of the Mount, he was talking about things we should do and shouldn't do, but he wasn't talking to the church. He was talking to everybody. There was a huge multitude. But right here at this table, he was talking to 12 people. 12 men who were the foundations and the leaders of the church. And he was birthing something at this table. Because this table was so you can get to this one. You can't come to that table without coming to this one. They're very much a joined table. You have to understand this table to understand what this one's going to be.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And the cross really lays right between it. Because you have to come to the cross to get to that table. You don't get to come to the Father's place of celebration for his son's marriage if you didn't die with him at this table. That's the truth. And so people say, well, I can come to the Father because I went through Buddha. Or I can come to God because God is in all things. No, you can't. Because if you didn't come to the cross, you don't get to be with the Lamb. The Lamb gave his life right here. And you have to partake of his death and resurrection to get to come to his marriage supper. It's very much about the bridegroom, but it's also very much about the bride. There's a preparation that happens on your wedding day. And the bride, for 2,000 years, has been preparing herself for the return of her king. But she has gotten her focus off. A couple years ago when we began this church, God gave me a vision. And I saw a woman in this beautiful wedding dress. Her hair was up, gorgeous. She was all done up as a bride. And she was sitting there waiting. She was sitting at like a vanity, with the mirror. And she was sitting there and she was getting bored. And she decided to take her dress off. Her hair was still done up, her makeup was still done, but she took her dress off and kind of sat it off on a chair. She didn't hang it up. She kind of sat it off on this chair and went and got on some scrubby holey jeans with the knees ripped open and an old t-shirt that looked like it had an ice cream stain on it. That's what it looked like to me. And I'm seeing this in this dream, and I woke up and I said, why am I dreaming this? And the Lord said, the church took her dress off and she got sloppy. And she's bored. And she decided she was going to change her robe. But I told her to put that dress back on. And this was a couple of years ago. And I spoke to you guys a message about the bride of Christ. And it's time to put your dress back on.
Amen.
Get back where we need to be at. You know what it is? It's about the anticipation. When you wait for something long enough, you can get bored of waiting. But we as a church have done something where and when I say the church, I'm talking about the whole. I'm not talking about this one specific. I'm talking about the church as the body of Christ, as the bride of Christ. We've made some big errors when we get bored. Remember that sermon? When you get bored, we do stupid things. When we get bored, we start doing other things. When I leave home, when my husband and I go somewhere, our kids are old enough now to leave them by themselves for a short time. So I often give them instructions. Here's a list of things that you are to do your chores before I get home. There's no reason, and their chores are usually small. Load the dishwasher. Switch the laundry. You know, and they have these few little things that I want this done, and do not fight and do not argue, because Mama will come home and deal with you. And so they get this list of, this is what you do and this is what you don't do, right?
Yep.
And they get this list. And the whole point is, when I come home, I often reward them if they followed the list, right? When Jesus was on earth, he established the church. This cord is driving me crazy. He established the church. He set it in place. And then at the Last Supper, he gave them this big, giant list of what they're supposed to be doing. And long before Jesus ever died, he had given them a list of, when I go home, because I'm leaving, this is what I'm going to be doing while I'm gone, and this is what you're supposed to be doing while I'm gone. Right?
Yep.
Sounds familiar? And often Jesus talked about parables. Go look them up. They're there. They're in all the Gospels. He spoke so many parables about wicked servants that are left. The king leaves and leaves these servants in charge while he's gone. And he gives them orders. And while he's gone, they don't do what they're supposed to do. And then he comes back and says, what were you doing the whole time? And there's certain ones that followed through and did what they were supposed to do, and the other ones don't. And he has to deal with them. Sounds like a mom and dad who left their house and put their children in charge. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? And yet, this is the parables that Jesus taught consistently. I'm going to leave. Here's your written instructions of what you're supposed to do while I'm gone. This is what I'm doing while I'm gone. What was he doing? Preparing a place for us.
Yep.
That's what he said he was doing.
Right.
And we have written instructions to us what we're supposed to be doing. And when I come, I want to find you faithful to what I asked you to do.
Right.
That's really basically what these two tables represent. Here's the table where he gave us instruction, so that when he comes, he's going to find us faithful and give us the reward that we were faithful to the instructions he laid out. That's really what these two tables represent.